once again, welcome.
Thank you.
We have to wrap this up shortly. Of course, Ochami Bajimba is on from 10 a.m. With the mid-morning show. But like I was asking, how do you work with, because I'm saying everything you seek to do is already being done in some way or shape by a minister leading a ministry, and they are supposed to do particular things. For example, Grow 24. There's a minister who is in charge now, not of food and agriculture, but also of, I think, that agribusiness
yes,
as well. There's also Made 24, where you're talking about industry, because there's trade and industry sitting there. And we expect our ministers to be able to implement policies that improve efficiency in those sectors. You're also talking about Build 24, infrastructure. We have many ministries for infrastructure, roads and highways, works and housing, among others. There's Connect 24. There's also Fund 24, Exim Bank, all of those things.
Ministry of Finance.
The new Development Bank of Ghana too is also sitting there. CBG are joining the banks that we have that are state-owned. So there are many things that you can point to that you say can be used as platforms for achieving any of these things you've outlined. How would your program fit into all these structures that are already available that might feel that these spaces belong to them as well?
Yeah, or how their program fit into the national vision of 24-hour economy.
Oh, so their program will fit
into the national vision of the president.
Okay.
So, as you know, if you can see the way we choreograph the launching, all the ministers actually explained how their individual programs are fitting into the 24-hour economy by way of visioning. So, for example, the Minister of Trade talked about value chains, talked about the new markets, and talked about how they are ensuring that the ministry would streamline its business processes to enable the SME financing taking off. At the same time, in Grow 24, the Ministry of Agriculture explained how the feed program accelerates the Grow 24 agenda across the nation. As you see, for us in 24 economy, we cannot do everything. So you can imagine that we are a coordination structure, and we also have to prioritize the resources we have. So we have created individual growth corridors where we believe that when we start from this program, it will be able to have a multiplier effect. Then the Ministry of Agriculture also has complementary initiatives that are latching on to our program so that they'll be able to make an effect. It's important that every ministry owns it and calls it different names. So Feed Ghana, the Ministry of Agriculture and Agribusiness called the Grow 24 component as Feed Ghana. Ministry of Fisheries also have their own inland fishery and marine fishery agenda that fits into the Grow 24. At the same time, also Aspire 24, which has to do with digitally fluent young people, and all of that, they also mainstreaming that into their own. So we are very delighted that every ministry is actually owning the process and calling it a certain name so that they can brand it and own it and attribute their contribution. So in the classic case of writing a report, you'll be able to say when you go to Grow 24, this is how Feed Ghana, this is Feed for Ghana, all those fit in. If you see TVET, this is how a Ministry of Agriculture and Educationals fit in. So that's what it is. We have the policy and program document is the blueprint. We also expect the private sector to also call it by certain names to be able to show their contribution that they are fitting into this. Cultural and tourism also will do the same. So you may have different names for to cover everything, but at the end of the day, it shows the spirit of national mobilization, and also it shows the leadership that His Excellency the President has shown in making sure that every critical ministry that is implicated in this implementation is actually owning the process. We're going down to even districts. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see some district calling it certain names. But whatever name you hear is called, please know that it is their way of owning the process.
And some of those districts and also ministries, the funding is public.
Yes.
Mostly. Feed Ghana, publicly funded.
Right.
I've forgotten what the communication has, I think, where they are trying to provide digital skills. I've forgotten the name that they're giving to it.
The Jumara program is part of the Aspire 24 agenda.
So interesting. Some of them are funded publicly.
Yes.
So what would your private investment that you're seeking to, what would you go into?
So they are the ones that will create jobs.
Okay.
They own the businesses. Okay. So you do a Jumara, you have a coding, you have a AI fluency, and you develop certain skill for coding. Now you have a company. We bring the company that will absorb you immediately. Okay. So we are ensuring that there's an offtake for every human capital skill that is developed. In fact, we're going to go down to the level of identify the type of skills that are deficient in the country that youth need to be interested in, because those will be the avenues for market. Okay. You know, it's very, very important. One thing we need to know with this program, we are backing everything by science. All right, so we are working very closely with research and private research institutions, think tanks, and even academia, so that they can point us in the right direction of where we put our money. Okay. And private sector is coming with billions and billions of dollars. And please know that they are looking for money. They're looking for where to investment destination because of all the tariffs issues that U.S. and others are doing. Okay. And China is also having a huge market because of their aging population. Europe is having a huge market need because of their aging population. So we are the thresholds where really, really we need to produce to feed the world. We have the land and we have the human capital. So get the human capital, bring the technology, and then you add the machinery and things to it to be able to feed. So we are mobilizing the private sector and matching them. So you can imagine that the 25 economy, the authority that was going to establish, we are a secretariat now, but when we become authority, we're going to be matchmakers, strategically guiding where investments might go and making sure that shepherding the investment to make it happen.
Okay, because I hear the agroecological park.
Yes.
Exactly what would you be doing under the initiative? So you say you are matchmakers.
Yes.
So how do you establish a park? What do you do?
Right. So the agroecological park is based on the strategic value chains that we have. Okay. So typically you have a park where they are producing maize, cassava, and maybe millet. All right. Now this park is the agroecological park because of the nature of production. The production will have irrigation so that it maximizes the input, the output. It will have R&D support or support from extension services that will ensure that they are able to produce the quality needed. It will have a seed selection process so that the type of seed that we produced will be the variety that is required for industry and for our consumption.
I understand all that. I mean, what would you do? Like, are you acquiring land?
Okay,
right.
Exactly what yeah. So we are doing things like acquiring the land, building the infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure there, giving the energy, establishing the farm service center. Okay. These are things that we need to do a prerequisite for investors to come in. Okay. So that's why we are using a GIF, Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, to do that. And part of the viability funds that we'll get as seed funds will help us to leverage both development partners grants or technical assistance or some kind of impact investors to come in to establish this infrastructure. So we make the shell and then we ensure that the private sector will go in. Now, the private sector here are also smallholders, they are cooperatives. Now, the issue of land, our model is to have a land trust. Now, the land trust model is such that we have a community or a family that will say we're putting our land towards this agroecological park. So they count on it as an equity. Okay. And they can also become part of the smallholders. Okay. So they are in the production zone, making money through their production and also having an equity in agroecological parks, overall revenue that comes.
Well, when do you expect to roll out?
As I said, we are open to business. We are working on this. So typically for each agroecological parks, particularly now we prioritize the Volta Economic Corridor. Okay. We are working with in private sector to design the program, to sign the financial agreement and make them going. We are also working with the smallholders and the families that are putting the land trust together. So by December, we have everything ready. So imagine December will be on your mask, go.
And let me conclude by asking you, what is your role in all this? Because I see your title and the particular things it says. What is DOC supposed to do?
So what I'm supposed to do, number one, is to mobilize the financing through that we're coming through. So building strategic partnership with development partners, development financial institutions, the private equity, the diaspora, and all of that. And also building relations with bilaterals and so on. At the same time, is building the strategic partnerships with ministry department agencies and so that we'll be able to mobilize and provide the coordination structure that goes. And then looking at markets where we can have made in Ghana goods find their expression.
Well, Doc, thank you. Thank you. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the 24-hour economy. A lot of what you said, I've tried to, as much as possible, limit the conversation to the broad strokes.
Yes.
So that people have a picture of what you're going to do. But every one of those programs that you've outlined require
an in-depth discussion,
to have an in-depth discussion on all of them.
So in the succeeding weeks, we can take our time and go one by one, so that listeners can also
because
call in.
I didn't even ask about the Volta. You said Volta?
For the economic corridor.
Because everybody seems to be interested in that whole initiative and how it will be rolled out. So we'll spend some time and talk about the specifics. The specifics of the things that will be done under the 24-hour economy. But Doc, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my listeners, our listeners for this. And also, again, want to thank the President for giving us this opportunity. And I also commend the leadership of Honorable Guzitano. And also, I want to thank the party, the NC party, and thank all the trade unions that we've worked with, the manufacturers, the processors, and some of the financial institutions have expressed interest, the development partners, the UN system, and all of that who have expressed explicit interest to work with us. We want to say thank you. And Ghanaians, please, I thank you for your patience. Now that we've launched it, let's do it. Let's go.
And of course, I say Kofi. I brought Kofi Emmanuel here today. I have not.
Yes, sir, Kofi.
Last time I met him around somewhere. So anyway, and also
we have Divine here, and also so see who is very helpful.
Welcome and thank you. Anyway, we are back tomorrow with another edition of the Gold Morning Conversation. Coming up next is the King of Mid Morning, Ochami Bajimba. My name is Senna. My other colleagues Nancy, SM, and of course, show produced by Ribuat and Patrick Asford Boedu. Facebook Live by Alaska B. Well, Ransom Kwesi Boachi is on at 1 p.m. with Pampa, so do make a date with him. But before him, 30 minutes past 11, sports will come your way. Gold Talk Sports will be live. Do make a date with all our shows throughout this day.
One station. Accra.